join us now. We're going to do the remarks of the president's claims, and Daniel Dale is here to do that. Daniel, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. So, President Biden boasted about cutting the deficit last night. Take a listen.
In the last 2 years, my administration has cut the deficit by more than $1.7 trillion, the largest deficit reduction in American history.
Daniel, is he right?
Don, this boast about cutting the deficit leaves out such important context that I'd say it's misleading, even though his numbers are right. It is true that the deficit declined $1.7 trillion in fiscal 21-22 compared to fiscal 2020. But here's the key. Experts have consistently told CNN that Biden is taking way too much credit for this decline when he suggests his own administration is responsible. In reality, that decline overwhelmingly occurred simply because temporary pandemic spending from 2020 expired as scheduled. And not only that, experts tell me that Biden's own actions, his legislation, his orders, have on the whole significantly increased deficits. Dan White, a senior director of economic research at Moody's Analytics, which is a firm Biden has repeatedly cited, told me this: on net, the policies of the administration have increased the deficit, not reduced it. How much? Well, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, an advocacy group, estimates that Biden's actions will add more than $4.8 trillion to deficits from 2021 through 2031. And that group's president, Maya McGinnis, told me before the speech the White House deserves credit for the $250 billion of deficit reduction they enacted through the Inflation Reduction Act, but should also take responsibility for the $5 trillion of deficit increasing policies they signed into law or executive order. Now, Biden can take some credit, Don, for the economic recovery, which has boosted tax revenues. That helps keep the deficit down. But overall, what he's done has made the deficit bigger, not smaller. Don?
So, Daniel, he's also claimed that his predecessor accumulated a lot of debt. Listen to this.
Nearly 25% of the entire national debt that took over 200 years to accumulate was added by just one administration alone, the last one.
Fair claim, Daniel?
It's more fair than the last one, and again, his numbers are correct, but there's still some important context missing here. In short, Don, Trump wasn't solely responsible for the debt increasing during his tenure. Under Trump, the debt did rise by a quarter. It's now above $31 trillion. It went up by about $8 trillion under Trump. Some of that was definitely Trump's own doing. His unfunded tax cuts were a major contributor. But a big chunk of the increase was the trillions in bipartisan COVID spending. That's when the big Trump-era spike in the debt occurred in early to mid-2020. Also, as always, some of the increase was because of spending that is mandatory because of decisions from previous presidents, from Medicare and Medicaid in the 60s to President George Bush's prescription drug benefit to Obamacare. So the debt blame game is common to both parties. It is tradition. But the reality is more complicated than just like the debt belongs to the president. Don?
All right, Daniel Dale, thank you very much.
Always keeping us up on all the facts. Let's bring in South Carolina Congressman and Assistant Democratic Leader James Clyburn for his reaction. Good morning, sir. It's so nice to have you in person.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Good.
Did we just see the beginning of Biden's run for 2024 last night?
I think so, and certainly hope so. Let's finish the job. I thought that was a great refrain, and I do believe he's laid a tremendous foundation for doing that. And I think the American people is going to respond very positively. I think I saw some of what you all said this morning, that from the beginning to the end, among independents, his approval went way up.
72%. This is for a positive reaction to the speech last night. How did you grade it?
Well, I'll give him a little more than 72%. Yeah. I thought it was the best effort I've seen from him in a long, long time. You know, I do a lot of speech making myself, not nearly on the level that he does. But you know, when you're speaking to a group and you get hecklers, the way you respond to that, I think, is demonstrative of what kind of person you are. And I saw in him last night the kind of maturity that the American people would like to see in a president. He took on the hecklers, let them have their say, gave them a nice little smile, and responded in a very positive way.
You brought that up without us even prompting you. Why? That must have been that's on your mind. Why?
That's exactly right. You know, because, I think unfairly so, he gets a lot of flack from people about not being able to do well when he gets off script. He went off last night, did extremely well, came back on, and continued to pursue his agenda, which I think is a great agenda.
You think Kevin McCarthy should say something to his members about that?
I understand that he did say something to them about it
Beforehand.
and they didn't listen. When you're dealing with kindergartners, it's kind of hard to get them to listen.
How do you think that makes him look? Because look, Caitlin pointed out earlier. I mean, you and Nancy Pelosi, who was like, she was sort of, I should say, Speaker Pelosi, the former Speaker Pelosi, would calm some of the members down, but not. It doesn't seem like it was in this fashion. Well, how do you think this makes him look?
Well, no, Nancy's never had to calm us down. Nancy, we had discussions beforehand about how to respond to certain things and whether or not we should. But I don't know.
No, pardon me. But weren't there moments during the State of the Union where she would look and say, "Don't do that," especially during President Trump?
Probably so.
Yeah.
I don't
That's what I'm
remember.
talking about.
Yeah, sure. But we don't heckle. I don't remember a Democrat ever heckling a president in a State of the Union or any other manner. We may show disassociation with, unappreciativeness of. We may do it with a smile or non-smile facial expressions. I sometimes do it with my head, bow. I bow my head to pray, and I sometimes shake my head to say I don't agree. But to heckle, I mean, that's not the way adults act. You let the president have his say. You show your disapproval, but you don't heckle. You may not stand up, but yelling, calling the president a liar, especially when there's not a lie. It is absolutely the truth. I've seen the document put out by Rick Scott. He didn't call his name, but I know his name. The former governor of Florida, he was running the Senate re-elect stuff, and he put out a document calling for sunsetting Social Security and Medicare. And then Senator Johnson from up in Wisconsin said we ought to do it every year rather than every 5 years that the document called for. Now, he said some Republicans want to cut Medicare. Those are two that want to cut Medicare, and that, to me, made his speech all the worthwhile.
I think they're taking offense, if I'm correct here, if tying it to the debt ceiling is what they're saying.
sorry?
I think they're taking offense with tying that to the debt ceiling because there's
Well, it should not be tied to the debt ceiling. We didn't tie it to the debt ceiling. What they're trying to do is make room for the cuts. That's been done before. We understand the way this game is played. I think it was that Gingrich was said, I don't want to get rid of it. I want to reduce it to the level of being able to drown it in the bathtub. He was talking about Medicare when he said that.
I think we're out of time. We have so many more questions for you.
You can ask. Didn't you have? Do you wanted to ask him?
No, we're good. We appreciate you, and we hope you come back.
Well, anytime.
Nice to have you in
My office
person.
is just below us.
Looking debonair this morning,
Right?
as they say.
Well, thank you very much.
He said he was trying to keep up with. Everyone tries to keep up with Don.
Absolutely.
I'm following in his footsteps.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's
Thank
always
you.
a pleasure
Good
to
to
see
see
you.
you.
Thank you so much.